All right, we're live. Welcome again to another episode of Purpose and Practice, the podcast where we take the stories of individuals who are doing extraordinary things, and hopefully, you, the listeners and the viewers, can take some insight from what our guests are doing and apply it to your everyday life. Here at Purpose and Practice, we are always about reaching back and bringing forward. So we are always looking into our past and we're looking into the great things that some of us have done and bringing it into the future to ensure that it can help paint a brighter future for all of us. I am your host, Dr. Rawls Dill, and it's exciting to be here another Sunday. Um, I'm here this week. We have a special guest, someone who I really hold near and dear to my heart. TyKiera Brown, and I'm just gonna to give a little background on TyKiera, and then I'm gonna let her talk to you all about all of the wonderful things that she's doing currently, and we're gonna spend the next hour, learning more about who she is and how she has come to be the young lady that she is. Uh, TyKiera, since I've known TyKiera, she's always been someone who was never afraid to voice her opinion, never afraid to speak up, never afraid to assert herself. She always challenged me, to ensure that I was on my game. And I think that that's something that our young people usually do, but sometimes as adults, we don't take it the right way. But with TyKiera, she was always respectful in doing so, but she always managed to do that. I was able to tell since when she was a ninth grader, I knew she was a leader. I was able to see it immediately. And some of the things that she's doing now, whether it's in the community, professionally, volunteering, you see her all over the place. And she is doing the same type of things, but at a greater level that she was doing when I knew her back in high school. I thought that having TyKiera on the show today would be great because I know that there are a lot of younger brothers and sisters and youth out there who can learn a lot about her journey to where she is now, because I think that's what life is all about. It's about those journeys and us understanding how important the journey and the process is, and not just thinking about making it someplace, but about the journey and really, really, really embracing that. So, with that said, TyKiera, welcome to the podcast. Welcome
Thank you
to the
so much.
show.
Thank
Welcome to
you.
the show. So, how are you feeling? I mean, we're in some strange times right now, but how are you feeling?
I'm pretty up and down. I have those days where I'm in straight activist mode and
Mm-hmm.
I'm sharing things, I'm watching videos and I get upset. But I also am learning how to just balance. I am still very young, just like a lot of young activists, RIP to John Lewis. I was just reading how young he was when he got started. I just been trying to make sure I still live my life by also, being a voice for individuals that are voiceless or don't have courage to speak out, holding different leaders in our community and other communities accountable for the injustices that are going on. So it's a little bit like I said. I have my days. I still get out. I still go out. I listen to my music and everything. But then I have those moments where I get like just to myself, and I feel like I'm not doing enough. And that's when I start locking in and finding out things. So I've just been reading different pieces of information, like trying to just go inwards and trying to just see where I fit in this whole activist thing or speaking out against cause. Because I think sometimes when you always have something to say, which it could be a good thing, but sometimes you don't hear everything. So I also try to like fall back and, encourage other people to, stand up as well and, fill in those voids that I don't think that I can, manage. So I'm doing okay, pretty okay.
That's what's up. That's what's up. I think that lane talk is real important. I think, staying in a lane, identifying your lane and working that lane. In yoga, they call it minding your own pose. So not being distracted by what someone else's, grind is or what someone else's, path is. Focusing in on your path because you made a good point. This work, especially when you're in activism, we're going to get more into what you're doing on that level. But it's so broad. It's so much,
Yeah.
and you can sometimes be like, man, it's so much I have to do. But when you start breaking it down to like, all right, how can I impact and affect change in my lane? And when you break it down on a small scale like that,
Yes.
it becomes so much easier to do. So I want to get back. I want to kind of go backwards. All right.
Yeah.
I want to, because hopefully some young folks, are listening to this. And when I say young, I mean, hopefully some parents are sharing this with middle school age students, high school age students, and maybe they can learn, even college, maybe they can learn a little bit about your path, and maybe using some of the things that you went through to help support them in their growth. So let's go back and let's learn a little bit about, TyKiera growing up. Like, what was TyKiera like growing up?
A roller coaster and a big personality, which I still am to this day. I don't think it's something that I could shake off of me. I do get quiet. I do have my quiet days, but I'm also just very outgoing. Young, I think that I didn't see at a young age what I would be doing now. So you go through those different phases of self identity and trying to figure yourself out. I call people pain partners sometimes when you have things in commons with certain individuals, certain friends, and you cling on to those individuals. And I would say some, but not all. I didn't really have too many young people really encouraging me to amplify my voice. It was more to use, like, and back in high school, you remember just arguing with different people. And, every educator or professional staff will always say to me, like, you're not wrong, but the way you're saying it is what is the problem. And I just couldn't grasp that. I also had to get out of that cloud of thinking everybody was out to get me, because I felt like that for a
Mm,
very, very long time.
mm,
Even up until, like, my late teens, it was just always this thing like, what is it? Like, why are people always have something to say? And I felt like any chance you said anything to me, I had to correct you.
wow.
It might have not been the correct way. But I also realized I started to think about different things, and I started to think about, like, being suspended or getting into detention, and also just being distracted by little things. But I also realized that I felt like sometimes the work and things, I wasn't really pulled by it. It was kind of like boring to me.
Mm,
And I know we're all going to have studies that are not necessarily our favorite. But I remember in our early years, and I know it's about me, but I remember when you would come in and talk to our class, or also you tried to push to move us to read different novels and different books. And I didn't realize how important that was later on in life. I was like, you know what? If I really felt like a book would have directly affected me, and maybe in high school, or I felt connected with the characters or anything, like, maybe that would have made me more interested in the work. But instead, because I was bored, I would, either find ways to get out the class, roam the halls, what typical kids are doing. But I felt like a lot of times, not until I got into high school, I was always just disciplined. And I didn't feel like they sat down and really
mm,
explained things to me or try to even get to know me. I always felt like it was just kind of like this bad label, or just she talks too much label. And I think that once somebody tells you something about yourself, you kind of just live underneath that
wow.
that spectrum of whatever they're trying to say. Like, you know what? All right, they say I'm bad, or I'm gonna keep on proving it to them. But no one really sat down into my later years. And I even say to myself now, I was like, wow, I got in trouble in fourth grade. How was I in school suspension in fourth grade? Meaning, I was like, I was missing out of classwork, and no one, I don't remember, they would just give me packets and say, do this work. But there's some little things, especially, and we'll get into grammar later. I realized, I try to see where did this come from? Where did this start from? Why did this impact my writing? And I was like, wow, I could see. I had a professor tell me in college, like, my seventh grade daughter writes better than you. And it crushed my heart.
Wow.
But
Wow.
then I look back, I was like, okay, now I see why she said that. And now I see why she thought I should be performing better, especially on the college level. And I was like, I think it's linked to going all the way back. Like there's may have been a lesson I did not learn because I was, in trouble and in school suspension a lot.
So
Um,
so much, TyKiera. Like you've said so much in that little bit,
yeah,
and but I wanna go back to the idea of you first accepting kind of what people were describing or defining you as. Like it sounds as if you know you felt as people kind of made a path out for you, and these people they may have been educators, they may have been teachers, they may have been
yeah.
what have you. When do you feel like you snapped out of like, all right, I am not what people are defining me as? Can you point? You think you point to a moment when you kind of
Yeah,
identified that?
I think because I always tell people that I remember at first I did not want to go to college. And you
Mm-hmm.
yourself, I was like, I'm not going. It's too much money. I just had all these different ideas about it. And I remember, it was a few other friends I was with. And I think we had a conversation with you. And I think that day you were just upset that we just kind of like dismissed the idea of furthering our education. Not saying that the school never said that college wasn't for everybody, but it's just you knew we could do it. And I think it was like later on, I started to realize that I did want better for myself. But again, like I said, the others around me may have not wanted to. So it wasn't up until I was able to start applying for schools and my GPA wasn't that high. So the options were very slim. And then I was like, wow, like I have to really get it together because I'm not going to be able to go to school if I don't really figure this thing out. And I think it was until like a little bit of the late junior year, even this, it's pretty late in high school, but late junior year, then going into senior year, that's when I got serious. And that's when I started hearing about just taking the SAT serious and just applying for different schools. And then when I finally got accepted into the school that I wanted to, which was St. Peter's, which I graduated from, I got there and it was also in Jersey City, which was just a complete different city from what I grew up
Mm-hmm.
from. And it was just a different experience. And just meeting people from all over, I was like, you know what? This is the perfect time to reinvent myself. Like, no one here knows me. I don't have any teachers warning warning
Yes.
professors that I'm going to be disruptive or anything. Like this is my shot to finally get away from certain people, the people that wanted me to act out, or if my friends, the term beef, like if I was always, like you said, I was always the one that wasn't afraid to back down to anyone. So I was always the person they call on, but I might not have necessarily started it. But then I
Into
started to
it.
realize you had to take care of your reputation because it always was TyKiera, TyKiera, TyKiera. And I used to be like, what is this? Like I didn't even start. Like I just came to be there for, my friend or the homie at the time. And they're just wrapping me in this and making it seem like I'm the troublemaker or I'm this. So I really had to change that. I felt like it was just very misunderstood. Like, I remember one time I had even a relative one time was like, I'm so proud of you, because I thought different. And I was so
Mm-hmm.
upset about that. Like, you thought I would, like, why did you think that? Like, I was a young kid I think there's so much pressure on teens. Like, you don't know yourself, you have no clue about yourself. And of course, you're going to mess up. And I don't think that sometimes in schools they embrace the fact that you're going to mess up enough. It's kind of like you do something
I
wrong,
agree.
let's just say twice or anything, and now you're just a bad, teenager, or you're just, and then it happens to a lot of us. So I think that it was like transitioning into college and just even having different experiences. I still didn't hit my peak then. I still carried parts of
Yeah.
me
From
because
yes.
I would go home. You go home on the weekend. So now it's like, now I want to say you're living double lives, but you got your school friends and then you got your friends at home. And it wasn't until I started coming home and then I started realizing like I didn't really have that much in common. I was getting a little afraid, like, what's going on? Like, I'd rather be with my school friends, I used to always just say college friends, college friends, college friends. And it wasn't to downplay my friends, but I was just connecting with them more. And then that's when I just, was able to accept my growth. And then it was just go time from there.
Let's stay there for a little bit because you brought up you brought up a lot of good points, but one that I think really a lot of us struggle with is when you talked about, I identify with some college friends that I had, and then I had my home friends, and some of my peers who may not have gone off to college, and there's nothing wrong with that. But what I want to talk about is that sometimes, like, well, I know for a fact, right, peer group. When you're preteen and teenage, the most important group in a teenager's life are their friends or their
Yes.
peers, right? So sometimes we get involved with peer groups that may not be making the healthiest choices,
Mhm.
and we may have to either break away from that peer group or try to work to convince that peer group to make better choices. But what I want to talk about is that when you were having that struggle with, wow, I feel like I have different friends, some of your old friends may be like, "Oh, you think you're too good for us," or now that you're in college. And I'm speaking on from my own experience because I had similar experiences.
Yeah.
So my question is how did you deal with that? Like, did you have to deal with that?
Yeah, I did. It was very stressful because I think parts of me still deal with it a little bit. Because I think that some people feel like you may have get it where let's just say you go to a bar, and I'm not saying you drink, I'm just using it as an example. But it's like you go out and you're with your wife and you guys are enjoying a drink, and then someone sees you and they're like, Dr. Ross, you're here? Like as if you're not human.
Yeah.
And I felt like that a lot. Like, okay, I gotta still show them that I'm fun and I still go out and stuff, but I'm also serious with my conversations with my friends. Like I have my friends from school who might push me, who might open up opportunities to me, or just the conversations are just different. But I
Mm-hmm.
also felt like you still gotta prove like I didn't forget about y'all
Oh yeah.
either. And I don't think I'm better than I felt like I always had to prove to people that I didn't think that I was better than them.
Yeah.
So
That yeah.
until this day, it's always this thing like because I want so much for myself, people just push that off. Like you think you better, or even when I explain my love for school, like because college changed my life. That's just my experience, and I accepted that now. Like you know what, you can continue to talk about school because immediately I'll say I loved school, and someone will be like, well, college ain't for everybody, or everybody doesn't graduate on time, or everybody, and I'm like, that's okay, I understand that, but just my love for something is not downplaying your experience. And I realized that I didn't, even now I realize now that I just don't have to cater to everybody's opinion.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I listened to a podcast on Super Soul Sunday with Oprah one time, and Oprah said it herself, I had to kill the disease to please. And when she said that, I was like, that was me. Like just a
Wow.
people pleaser, just wanted to please
Wow.
everybody, make everybody happy. And it takes
Wow.
time out from your life. And sometimes, causes riffraffs in your life because you're trying to make everybody happy but yourself.
I like that. I like that. I just want to put that out there. So I want to stay in high school just for a little
Yeah.
bit longer. One of the things, and hopefully you recall this story, right?
Yeah. Go ahead.
So one of the things that one of the toughest decisions that I ever had to do, believe it or not, as a professional, as an administrator, involve you, right? And it was, and this is our, I'm sharing this a lot for educators, right?
Yeah.
Because you and some of my other favorites did something that you had no business doing, right? And we're not going to get to specifics, but it involved consequences that you had to have, right? So I was up all night like wrestling with like what kind of consequence would really be meaningful for, in this case for TyKiera, right? So because a lot of times as principals, we think that the only consequence is you got to be suspended, you got to, this, that, and the other. So I was like, all right, what I want to do is I want to do a traditional consequence because of the nature of what happened. But I was like, you know what else I want to do? Because I started looking at your assessment scores over the years. I started looking at your grades, and I was like, man, this girl is smart, right? And I said, one of the consequences for TyKiera for doing something that she should not have been doing is that she's going to go into some honors classes, right? So
Oh my gosh.
yes, at that point, and I don't know if you remember,
I do. I
yes.
remember.
And I remember coming to the meeting and saying that that's going to be one of the consequences. And I had to jump through, you have no idea what I had to do to prove to folks to let you into those courses,
Yeah.
And then when you got in, it was like, all right, what do we have to do to support TyKiera to make sure? Do you remember that?
I do, because I was so mad because I didn't want to go to the honors classes. I tell people that to this day, they're like, "What?" I remember going to you, like, and I think I even went into Dr. Freeman at the time too. Like, I really overstepped my boundaries.
Yes.
I'm like, I'm going to Rawls Ball, so I'm going. I'm upset. I'm
Yes.
going, and I remember thinking that at the time, it's so funny. I just thought that all the other administrators would just be on my side. I'm like, are you like, Mr. Rawls is trying to put me in honors classes and I don't want to go into classes with them. Like that was my attitude. And Mr. Freeman, I remember he was like, oh, it's going to be a wonderful experience. And my face was like, what?
Yes.
I remember like, okay, I'm ready to go now. I'm gonna go back to lunch now. Let me get out of here. Cause no one was agreeing with me. But
Yes.
I'm so thankful that that happened because actually I finished you put me in AP history
Mm-hmm.
and I finished history early than I was supposed to in college. I was pretty much ahead in school due to the fact that I passed that AP history and then I was able to knock it off. So
Mm-hmm.
when I went to St. Peter's, I was done with history my first semester actually. So a lot of people always ask like, why were you on time? But I felt like even lessons that I learned in AP history that I might have not learned in a regular history class, my teacher was very pleased that I knew a lot. Like I was very engaged. I was like, oh, I know this. Oh, I know that. I heard, now I'm kind of like flashing to the other students, like we learned this in our high school already.
Yes.
But now I'm appreciative of the fact that you pushed us into those classes because I felt like I was really, really prepared, going into school for some things, not all, because I still, like I mentioned, like I struggle with my writing. And you helped me a lot with that too. You were very open. So when I even came back from school and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
they're being hard on me in these college English classes. And I'll never forget, you told me to read a book and just copy the book, write out a
Yes.
book.
Yes.
I still remember
Yes.
that to this day, those lessons. And I started to do that.
Yes.
I started to do that. Another tip I got was to read the New York Times out loud
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to myself so I can listen when I'm reading it to myself, understand good writing. So all of those tips, like, the lessons that, hurt the most or where you feel like it's so unfair, it really just helped me out later
Yes.
on in life. I'm
Yes.
like, wow, all of this is amazing now. I
Yes.
got a story to tell.
And I'm glad because it makes, and that's why I said this, that's for educators, because I can tell so many stories of young people who came up, because I was always either middle school or high school. So by that time, a lot of you have been defined already.
Yeah.
Like people, the stories were out. Like you did this, they did that. And I always erased that stuff. I didn't even want to hear it, because I always wanted to give everyone a fresh opportunity. But if we start getting educators, teachers, and administrators to realize at elementary school, to start making these movements and start making these moves with people and young people, especially our black and brown, students, because those are the ones who are being left out of courses like that. So I always want to give something to educators because educators need to know that that can be a consequence. A consequence is not always negative.
Yes.
A consequence is just that. It's a consequence as based off of a behavior. And sometimes consequences can be, I'm going to push this young person a little bit more, but I'm going to also provide the supports. And
You need to put that in your little
out.
chat,
Yes.
thing on the bottom. A consequence is not always negative.
Yeah, I'm on it. I'm on it. Now you being the producer and everything.
Yeah.
See, this is what we have to do. This is what we have to deal with. But you know what, TyKiera, real talk, before we move on, that also, what you just did, right? A lot of adults don't respond well to young people kind of saying, this is how we should do it, or did you ever think about this, or having an opinion and having a voice. So sometimes I'm sure that even got you, like, you know what I mean, into things. And as we're talking, I'm
all the time.
That. Yes.
All the time.
Yes, because we're thinking like, oh, you can't, shout out to Kayla. Kayla just commented. And eventually we're going to have the whole crew is going to be on the show.
Yes.
You're the first one of the crew, but those y'all definitely were a crew. So what I want to get into is, is family.
Yeah.
Because, that's one thing, shout out to your mom on the show. Like, your mom go hard. You know what I'm saying? And I, real talk. And I've always valued that, and even up until, recently as last year, your mom and I have stayed in contact, with different things. But I want you to talk a little bit about your support system in terms of family.
Yeah, definitely my mom, definitely the number one person that goes so hard for me. I'm very appreciative of that because, I also used to always feel bad for people who didn't have such a strong force in their lives. And I think when I was younger, I was a little unappreciative until I started getting older and I started realizing, like you said, all the consequences are not always bad. My mom, she just was strict on me, to a certain extent. Like, she did allow me to be a teenager, but there was certain things I was not allowed to do. But my friends or, other people were able to do. Like, I couldn't stay at the parties late or may not have been able to stay the night at certain individuals' homes. And I didn't understand it. I was just kind of like, why, what is this? Like, my mom, I used to go to my grandma and say, grandma, like, why my mom, she's being so strict. She needs to, my mom just didn't play. But later on, I realized that she just from the beginning, just always wanted us to be in good areas, always want us to want what's best for us. Like, I remember there were certain areas, and I won't name them because I don't want anyone to feel offended, but, my cousins would live in certain areas of Long Branch, and there would be so many kids. And I always just say, why can't we live over there? Like, you're not picking the right neighborhoods for us. We need to live over there. All the kids are there. And I remember in high school, my mom said it, and not to shame anyone, but she was like, I want you in neighborhoods. And that doesn't mean any type of race or anything, but she was like, I just want you in working areas where you get used to seeing people get up and go to work. And she later on, she was able to have the conversation with me. And I was like, wow, now I understand. Like, she want us to wake up as we're going to school, set the tone. Like, you guys could buy the house across the street if you want to. You guys can just get used to feeling like you deserve all this, because sometimes you do get individuals who make you feel like you don't deserve it, or why would you want to move over there? Why, and I'm sure you got it, you people were like, why you want to live in this area? You could have stayed home. You could have did all of this. And my mom never allowed me to be limited. Like, she always pushed me to just do more. And same thing with my dad. Like, I think my mom is more of the rational one, but my dad, like, the car taste and all the different things that are like that necessarily my mom might not like. I get it from my dad, but he has like just that hustler mentality. Like
Yeah.
keep it going. You can always get more. Like, you know, I could say something to my dad like, "Oh, I was looking at a house for this price," and he's like, "Well, I think you can afford more. You know, just work harder."
Yeah.
Like, you know. So I'm very grateful because they both push me and don't allow me to settle. And I think that's very, very important. And both my parents also made sure that I did not get caught up in watching what was on other people's plates. Just to be, you know, just the terminology, they never allowed me to get caught up like, well, this and that is doing this or they're doing that or they got this before me. It's just that never was tolerated. Like that jealousy mindset, it never was allowed. Even with my siblings, like we're all very close. We're very defensive over one another. My friend was just telling me the other day, I never seen any siblings like it. Like, you
They're
know,
all tight.
yeah, you bite one, it's like you bit all of us. And we just never we was just in an environment where we always want to see people win. And you know, you see it now, it comes out because we always share different people's posts on Facebook or Instagram, and we're always congratulating people or always over complimenting, but it comes from our parents because they spoke well to us growing up. They're the way that they made us feel good, the way that they praised our accomplishments, because you know, sometimes you hear even in the Black, I think, households, you know, to be honest, I think that some people prepare their children for war or they prepare them for obstacles. And they say like, you know, you got an A on the test, you were supposed to get an A on the test, like, you know. But my parents were not like that. You know, they made us feel like the A was over the, you know, especially me, because I was more of a laid back student. My sister was more of the overachiever. You give TyKiera a B plus, she's like, no, I want the A. I was more of the, I want the B. I'm okay, I passed. Like that was that was my attitude. But still, even in that moment, my mom always still cheered me on. And later on, she always said, I knew all of you guys were different type of students. So I made you still feel proud because at least I knew you tried.
Wow.
And that's okay for me. And so I take that even now moving on. Like my mom always say, just try. Just try it out. That's all that matters. And so it's a good feelings because, you know, again, like you can be in an environment where people are against you or whatever, but to know two of like your creators, both of them, they push you and want what's best for you and never like try to hinder you from going forth. It's like I'm in a really good situation. Like even to this day, I'm very fortunate.
Yes, very, very blessed in that way. I have to say, it's, you know, from my experiences, very blessed, very blessed.
Yeah.
So I want to get into some of the things that you're doing now. One of the most inspiring things, right? That was it back it was Juneteenth.
Yeah.
When I saw you, I know Mike Bland was involved. I'm not sure who else was involved, but I know that even going back before Juneteenth, let's go back to the Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's go back to that march, right? So, and I was so upset because I wasn't able to attend either of those marches due to, you know, health things and what COVID was going on
Yeah,
in
yeah.
my household. I
Understandable.
just couldn't. But I'm watching that and I'm like blown away when I see like you and TyKiera and Mike Bland up at the front leading this, organizing and leading this. Please tell us about, you know, what pushed you to that point. Like how did that
Well,
happen?
well, I would say one, my sister in Veronica Sweet. I'm not sure if you remember her.
Yes, I do. I
She
do.
was a track star. They both
Yes.
were just always coming together around everything that was going on. They kept saying like, we have to do something for the city. We have to do something for the city. And I was always the one more involved with things going on in the city. And like, I did get the support of my sister, but I
Hmm.
guess you just like you said, you got to find your lane. And she was just trying to figure out like, how do I come up? But you know, TyKiera is very activist as well.
Yes.
She is, you learn from her how to really just stand up for yourself. She just always stands up for herself, no matter what. But those two, I would like to give the credit to them. Yes, I was involved with actually just making sure that, it was okay for us, because I wanted to make sure that we did it the right way. And, it was such a sensitive time. I mean, things are still sensitive, but I was like, let me make sure I make certain phone calls so this doesn't get, if the cops come over here and say you're not supposed to be here, that this doesn't turn into another situation.
Sure.
I'm not saying a fatal situation, but I'm saying I just didn't want it to take away from what Juneteenth meant, because it's the embracing freedom, and it's a good time, although we were experiencing a bad time. And I said, this is not a protest, this is a party, this is like the cookout, everybody's here.
True.
So TyKiera came up with the idea, and I just helped her, I just supported her in that moment. And she actually was unable to be at the Juneteenth event because she had scheduled to go to Puerto Rico. She way before she knew that we would get something, because it happened so fast. But again, like, when you believe in something and you really push for it and you're consistent, I think anything can happen. And that's what happened with the Juneteenth event. So she came up with the idea, and a few others of us just came together, and we supported her idea and we executed it. And I was just happy to see like the city come out, because, it's very hard sometimes, because when you're starting anything, you're always going to get pushback. Especially being in Long Branch, there's some individuals who say, don't even do anything here because it's not going to go anywhere.
Yes. Yep.
Why do you want to be here? Or why do you want to have this walk here or something? Like, do it somewhere else, or don't get involved with this person. Don't get involved. So sometimes it takes away. But I felt like with that moment itself, I'm saying during the walk, I just felt like we all were one at that time. And that's all I really wanted us to, that's what my agenda is when I come involved and I'm involved in the city. Now I'm kind of like, like you said, trying to stay in your lane. And I am doing that, and not trying to be too greedy, and allowing other people to get involved as well and supporting them more behind the scenes. But the message that I'm trying to get across is, one, I'm very big on representation. Like, any young girl that may feel like she resembles me, or feels like, just a person of color that sees me in a room or sees me at an event, I just want them to know that I am defending them as well, and not trying to fit into anything. I'm just trying to be the voice at the table, because so many people are afraid to go to certain tables, or so many people are like, I got to dress, or I got to know this person, or I got to have a certain type of money. And I blame some of the leaders in the community for making some people feel like that. And that's why I felt like, even with now we're forming the Juneteenth Coalition, which is just still in formation. My message, the objective is everybody deserves a seat at the table. Like, just like how you have your hat to the back, if we're having a meeting, you come like that. Come the way you feel you should come. Like, let's not put anything on this. Like, let's just fight for a cause. We know what's against us, and let's just come together. And so that's what I'm trying to do in the city. And
you doing it, girl. Like, I listen, and you know what I like about what you just said is, and that's one of the reasons, like, you have to be your authentic self,
yeah,
right? And I think sometimes, and I know it gets deep. Like, there is a such thing as code switching. There is a such thing as, like, all right, in this area I gotta act this way. In another area I have to act. I understand that. That burden of code switching falls on black and brown people.
yes,
That's who it falls on. We are
yeah,
always
it
the
does.
most stressed. Like, me wearing my hat backwards, is that really, does that take away any of my qualities?
Exactly,
You know what I mean?
exactly,
Now, if I'm going to work, maybe my head's, I'm not dressed this way. You understand
exactly,
what I'm
which
saying?
is
But
understandable.
yes, but it comes down to a lot of times of us, especially with young, and I keep going back to young people, because young people are in schools, they're either over disciplined, okay, for things like having their hat backwards, things like that. I think that in order to get more young people attracted in doing the things that they need to do and being the best versions of themselves, we sometimes, as adults and as educators, have to let some of those things go. Like, don't come with your hat backwards. Don't, like, we have to let these young people be their authentic self.
Yes.
And I find that once you do that, that's when you develop relationships and young people are eager to learn from you.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think that's just, I think that that's so important, because so many people are turned off by, do I have the right clothes to wear? Am I going to look the right way? Am I going to be accepted at this coalition meeting? Am I going, and it's like, before you know it, the very people you need involved in the movement feel like they don't have a place at the table. Like you
Yeah,
said.
and that's why I share so many of the things that I felt. Some people say, don't share this or don't share that. And, I go on live on my, on my Facebook as well, my Instagram. And I like to share personal stories because I want more people to relate with me, because I felt like I've been at tables, and I'm like, I've been at a lot of tables where people have put people at higher standards. Not everyone is smart just because you see them at the table. I'm like
True.
thinking of ideas, and I'm just like, this doesn't even make
True.
sense. Like, this person is in a room because someone else put them in there, it makes me sad, because even when what I loved, and I would give a shout out to them, I also helped with the PR for there's a CTC group, a Communities That Care group, and it's through RWJ Barnabas, and their agenda is to tackle the opioid crisis within teens and educate them, and also provide intervention. So when they were coming to Long Branch, a good friend of mine had suggested to the leader at the time, I think, TyKiera would be great. And at first it was very sensitive for me, because I've had family members have experiences with drug use. And a year before I even, well, not even really a year, maybe like a couple months before I even got involved, my cousin had died due to, overdose. So I kind of was like, I don't know if I should join this, because, I know so many people that have this battle, and I don't really know if I should be the voice of this, because and then when I got to the meetings, and I had a good friend, a very, very close friend of mine, he told me, like, no, you have to go. Like, you don't realize, I don't think you see the bigger picture right now, but I think you have to go. And that's what I'm saying. You have to be careful who you talk to as well, because I had someone who talked me into it. So I was like, all right, let me get in, let me get there. And when I got there, there were so many individuals who were involved. And the first thing they wanted to know was, what about the kids from Long Branch? What are they thinking? How do they think? Where do they live? They wanted to make sure they represented everybody. And I was like, okay, this is perfect, because now I can speak for everybody and talk about the needs, and share that we're more than just Pear Village. Like, don't go up the block and think that this is everyone's reality. Go behind McDonald's and walk through that area and see. And they were very open. They were very open to just, spreading the services and telling me to encourage more kids. And also, when I will bring different people, I have relatives that have never been to any event that I really had, that came to support that cause. I think Hares, actually, Miss Nieves, you're familiar with her. She had a brunch. Yes. You guys work together. She had a Hares brunch, which addressed the opioid crisis. And I had relatives there. I had an uncle there that overcame addiction, and it made me so happy, because I was like, this is what I was pushing for. Like, they were encouraged. They even were like, speaking after, like, maybe I should tell my story after. And I was like, that's all I wanted. I just wanted to get in a room. So more people just wanted to go into rooms. And once they feel comfortable enough to go into these rooms, we can really make a big change, because we always just hand the ball to one person, and it becomes complicated, like, because everybody, like, that person should do it. That person should do it. But I've also had a person tell me that you're not the only one that has to help everybody. And that one statement, like, relieved me so much. I was like, you know what? Yeah, you're right. Like, I have my area, but there's other people who may have different expertise or different ways to connect with individuals, and let me allow them to do it and just do what I'm good at doing. And if I obtain a new skill in the midst of it, that's different. But let me pull people, and, what what best is it for people to come in and help, people that are in need than the people that once were directly affected by the cause, that, that you're shouting for and chanting for. So that's one of the things that I've tried to do, and I think that, sometimes when people don't see your vision, or like you said, just giving you the space to do so, I think first you got to show them that you can do it first. And then once they see, okay, you're about something, now I'm going to take more of your advice. And that's what I did. I never really ran behind any shadows, or even in the city, I never wanted nothing from anyone. I was like, I have a career. I'm not looking to take over this. Or, I see people joke around like, you're the next mayor or whatever. And I'm like, that's not really, maybe it might be in my future, but that's not what I'm after right now. I'm not trying to take anything. Like, I'm just trying to get other people that look like me in a room, to come out and speak out against certain things, because you see it, you have, even if you don't comment on people posts, but I'm sure you see different individuals who may speak out about things. And I read those posts, or this should be happening, our school should be like this, and or the city needs to do this, or our recreation needs to be that. We need more people at the Bucky James Center. And I hear all this and I say, well, come to the meetings. Like, a city council meeting is free. Come be part of it. And I think the reason why some of them don't come be part of it is like, like you said, it's that prestige. Like, you have to have a certain thing, or you need to be a certain way in order to get in the room. And I'm like, no. And then you have me, that once you come in the room and you see that I am my same way, my same voice, my same attitude, if it's there, I'm just there, and then they come and I'm joking around or I'm laughing with someone, and then they're like, all right, you know what? I do want to get more involved. But it is hard because you experience individuals who don't all have the same vision as us. And you do have the people that are on a mission to just get into positions, and they might even use your light a little bit to try to move up. So now I'm like, that's why I'm very, like you said, being authentic is very important to me, because I think the more you know yourself, you can really sense the ones who are not truly in support of what you're trying to do. So now I'm kind of like, I say the word solo. I've been working more behind the scenes. I've been out there. I've been still involved in things in certain Zoom conferences and stuff. But I'm just, being observant right now, and seeing again, where do I come in, or where do I push? I am working on a project, but, before we even want to release anything, we're just like, let's check the temperature and let's make sure that what we're about to do is smart. But, we want to make big change without being on any type of chain or owing anything when we're done.
I think whoever's shouting out, be a mayor. Are you going to be the mayor? You're going to be a senator. Keep shouting it out.
Yeah.
I feel where you're at though. I know you're just saying I'm focused on right now.
Yeah.
But listen, it's so much negative and deficit talk directed to our black and brown kids.
Yes.
That we need more people shouting out, you're going to be the mayor. You're going to be, not saying that you sitting here trying to, be in somebody's spot, but having that positive talk and those affirmations, because going back, like we go all the way back to when I met you, that's what I was trying to do.
Yeah, you were.
Plant these seeds, because if you have enough of these seeds planted and you get the support you need, eventually you're going to grow. You were getting it at home. This is another thing directed to schools. You were getting it at home, but when parents drop kids off, they need to know they're going to get that same kind of nurturement and that same kind of care in schools.
Yes.
Because it's more, it takes more than just home. Some people believe what I do at home. No, it takes more. Teachers, administrators, school personnel are spending, and many times they're spending more time with your children than
Absolutely.
you get to spend with your children.
Absolutely.
So that school piece is very, very important. Somebody run for mayor. I just put it up.
Yeah. And that's actually one of my friends. I see the comment. Her name is Valerie. We actually, And we actually wrote for our school at St. Peter's newspaper together.
Oh, okay.
So she's
Okay.
seen my development, but also been very supportive. And I'm grateful for individuals because we didn't always hang out with each other. But she always supported me. And that's what I loved about going to college. And that's one of the experiences I appreciated because there was people that didn't really even know you, but just saw you doing something good. And they're like, way to go, keep
True.
on going, or let me just show you how to do certain things or get involved with different
True.
things. And I never felt excluded. So, when I came back home, I know it was a big decision because I was at that, you probably can have that experience because I know you went to NJCU.
Yeah, because you keep shouting out St. Peter's, and I was getting ready to say Gothic Knights because we right down the road.
You're down
And
the
I'm here,
road.
listen, I'm here all this St. Peter's this, St. Peter's that. I'm like, listen, NJCU right down the
Yes.
road. Okay? We was in
But
Chilltown, JC2. Wasn't just St. Peter's.
yes. Yes. But I'm saying in the sense that, you came back and you became an educator at Long Branch, but I'm sure you got the pushback. Like, why do you want to go back there? Why you want to be a teacher there? You can go somewhere else. And, although you eventually left, but you still started there. And I remember just like, do I want to go back? Do I want to go back? Because I just want to get started and just do the work. I'm not trying to get anything else. But, you get that pushback and then you come into, so much adversity. But I'm just happy, like you said, I had the Dr. Rawls and the other individuals. When you have so many positive people around you too, it kind of like drives out that negative noise and makes you really feel good, like you're doing stuff. Cause I'm human. Like, so there's times where I shut down. There's times where I'm like, I'm not even doing this anymore. Like, I don't want to be involved. Like, again, I have a decent career. Like, I love what I'm doing too. Like, there's times where I just want to fade to the back.
Fade to the back.
Yeah. And then I get a call about
Yes.
something and someone's
Yes.
like, can you get involved with this? And I'm back to, okay, yeah, all right, I'll do it.
That's real. Listen, that what you just said, and that's what I feel. Real talk. That's what I feel a lot. Like there's a lot of guilt, because I did go back to Long Branch, and I love. Listen, I always love Long Branch. Long Branch
We
is
all
my,
know
yeah,
you
that's my
were,
home. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Like
you did your thing there.
yes, yo, I will always love Long Branch, and hopefully one day I will make it back there. But what was hard for me was going someplace else and doing things in other places, because I used to feel like this guilt, like did I turn my back on my hood? Did I
Yeah,
leave? You know what I'm saying? Like, and then I just started to realize that, our duty, as much as Long Branch is our home and our love, our first love, our duty is to do the beautiful things that we're doing and do it for the whole planet Earth. The more we can do, the better. And it can't just be in one geographical location. Will Long Branch always be first and foremost? Yes, without a doubt. That's my hometown. Like
yeah,
it will always be that. But we can't feel that guilt for maybe having to do something in another space or another place. It doesn't discredit the things that that we're doing, but we do. I know we always have that feeling of like, I don't want to let Long Branch down. We don't want to let Long Branch down. That's real talk.
yeah. I
So
tried to, you just have that guilt and just even in that experience, because there's times like, and I'm sure, and that's why I've always appreciative having like, someone like you in my life, or, different individuals that can relate to me. Because sometimes it can feel very lonely too. I mean, because not everybody wants to even hear sometimes your visions. Like me, when I'm excited about something, I kind of want to talk about it all day, which is might not be fun to the people that are not involved in it. But I'm like, even like with certain books or anything, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I got to talk about it. But to some people, it gets annoying, or when you don't relate to certain people anymore, like I said, that whole trying to fit in. Like I went back and I thought like some people that I will be around forever, that these will be I'm never turning my back on these people
yeah,
or whatever. And I have some, but not all of them. We're not even friends anymore. Not because anything bad happened, but just because you outgrow them. And that outgrowing or just distancing yourself and trying to get back, it can become very, very lonely, or you don't really, that space where you feel like you don't relate to people anymore is like just always trying to figure yourself out. But I feel like I have those moments often. Like, some people get a sense of who they are, but I feel like every year I learn something else about myself. Like, and not, I don't necessarily like all the different challenges, of course, but I appreciate them because I get to learn about myself, or, there's things that I just have to accept, or just being able to get in tune and really realizing that, like, I know we talked about faith, like I'm very big on faith, and I have to read certain things, or I have to go to bed, like things when I'm frustrated. I'm more spiritual. I won't really say religious because, I feel like I don't follow everything, the Bible says, or, but I will say that I love like just some type of inspiration, and I'm just spiritual. And I may go listen to like, a TD Jakes or someone before going to bed, or start my morning off like to get pumped. But I remember I was listening to TD Jake's daughter, Sarah Jakes, not too long ago. And she was saying her message was called Living in the Shade, and how some things just don't work out for us, for it to be a better future for us. And we get frustrated, we want certain opportunities, or we want certain things, certain projects to go the way we see them, but they're even bigger than what we can even imagine sometimes. And sometimes you just have to sit down and just, like I said, go inwards, pay attention, read, talk to different individuals. And I have those moments. Like I said, I have them often sometimes where I'm just like, what am I doing this for? Like, or these people they don't even care. Like, they don't even care. No one wants to change. Like, even our timelines, they're going back to normal now. Like, remember when the protests were starting, and it was Black Lives Matter, like every day, you couldn't even open up your phone application and not see a George Floyd, or something in the past about us, Sandra, or anyone, Tamir Rice, all those different individuals. And now it's just like everyone are just going back to their lives. And then when you're in a moment where you're like, all right, I want to help push the change, are we even still connected anymore? Like this, like we have to stop being a trend. And then that's when I'm ready sometimes to like wash my hands, and then another event come out.
And that, you know what? But I think that that's the life of activism, and I think that it's also I know with me anyway. There's times where you want to say, you know what, forget it all, and it's
Yeah.
like, it's not worth it. It's not. But what is it like? I wanted to know from you, when you have moments like that, right? I call them, like, from Insecure, like the Issa
Yeah, I love
the mirror
that.
talks, right? The mirror talk moments.
Mirror
Like,
talk.
yeah, we always talk about that in the book club that we're in. But when you're having that mirror talk, what is your mirror talk like? That kind of gets you back onto, all right, I got to get back on my grind. This is what I got to do. Like, how do you recenter? How do you refocus and get back, to what you need to be doing?
I start to maybe I might go back and look at different things. Like, I love pictures. So sometimes, where I feel like I haven't done enough or anything, like I'm just like, and I'm like, sometimes we're all very hard on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But I started thinking, like, and I do this thing on one of my pages called journal entries. And one of the things I said on one of the journal entries is list every time you feel down, list all the things that you've done that were positive. So I'll start going back into that list. I start reminiscing back on it. Like, okay, you won 2 awards, or you've been able to travel outside of the country. Like, my parents never left the country. Like, that's a big deal, and they were very proud of me Paris was my dream. And that's another thing, I always used to say, I'm going to Paris. I'm going to Paris. I was saying that in 9th grade, like, I'm going to Paris, put it on vision boards, and people would be like, okay, really? Like, are you really going there? And it was such a big deal to me, but it wasn't a big deal to everybody, because a lot of people don't know I wanted to go to school for fashion first. Like, that was what my dream was.
I know that.
Yeah,
And sidebar, right? I was looking at old videos the other day, last week, and I had the video where it was ninth grade academy, and you were filming me, and I had put that what was it? It was, we did it in health class, where young ladies would kind of put I forget what it was called, but it was kind of like to make you feel like you were pregnant. It was like a weighted type of vest or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And the next video that popped up, you were filming that, but the next video that popped up was when we had someone come in from FIT. And
Yes,
she, remember that,
yes.
and you were like a big reason for that because you were heavy into fashion. It was you, it was a few. I think Quita was involved in that, but it was a few who you were really involved in the fashion, and she came in, and those videos came up. So when you just said that you wanted to be in fashion originally, it just reminded me of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
And that was
reminded me
the
of that.
thing. I had this whole thing where I was just like, you know what? I want to go to fashion school. And then, I had someone very close and dear in my life now that said to me, you still can do all that. Like, you could still go to FIT or something. And I'm like, why would you, like, people just throw out ideas. Now I got to research all this stuff now. But again, I always believed that I can do certain things. And I was like, you know what? Like you said, going back to that question, just how do you go back and how do you reset yourself is when I think about that. Like, remember, not even about everything else, but there was a times where you thought you would probably never get to Paris, or you didn't even think like you were going there that soon. Like I kept
Uh-huh.
saying like, oh, 2022, when I'm 30, I'm going to Paris. And it happened much sooner than what I
Than what you
expected.
expected. Now
Yeah. And so,
I got to put this up here. Um, Miss T wants everybody to know
oh
she
yeah, she
has
did leave
left
the
the
country.
country.
But she left she left the country after we went to Paris. That's what I'm saying. But she
Shout
did.
out.
She went to Jamaica. She did leave the country. But me and Tiara, we went to Paris first.
Shout out. Shout
Yeah.
out, Miss
We
T.
went in 2017. Oh my God. She is so
She's like,
crazy.
listen, put that up in there.
Yeah, put it in.
Listen,
Oh my God.
so,
You see
but
where I get it from.
that's, listen. You have to, you have to be heard. It one one of the things in moving forward, we're gonna be closing out shortly,
Yeah.
but this whole thing, like, I don't know if you ever felt this, right? But it's something that's called, the term is called survivor's remorse, and
Yeah.
I know, right? Like James Baldwin writes a lot about it.
I love him. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. That's one person that I
yeah.
felt like I wish I could have met.
Matt, I've
Oh,
same.
okay.
His work is real. He talks about it. Jay-Z even has the songs about it. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about, like leaving, our home, and maybe surviving circumstances that some of our family members didn't survive, or some of our close friends didn't survive. And sometimes you wake up and you say, like, I feel almost guilty or bad for being in the space that I'm in. Like,
Yeah.
so do you ever have those feelings?
All
Do
the
you
time. All the
how do
time.
you like but how do you get it to where you don't have that remorse, and you don't have that feeling like of, I don't deserve it, or I shouldn't be here, because it feeds all into, because I know Michelle Obama, she had this quote, I can't remember the exact quote, but it had to do with basically having a feeling, of, they call it imposter syndrome, like, I'm not supposed to be at this table with these folks. I'm supposed to be back wherever I came from. Like,
Yeah.
how do you deal with that? Because real talk, TyKiera, I think more of our young people need to hear that, because sometimes we keep ourselves back as opposed to us thinking systems are keeping us back.
Yes.
Sometimes we
Yes.
keep ourselves back. How do you deal with that?
Um, so yes, I feel like that all the time. And I think my mom was actually one of the first to point it out to me. Like, she always was the one that just say, like, you have to think for yourself, or you always want to help other people. Like, and you get so hurt in the end sometimes, because I fall in love with, not just saying romantically, but just professionally with people. I always fall in love with people's potential. And it's probably the same way with you as an educator.
Mm-hmm.
You saw the future, it turned out good for me, but you might have some students that went down the wrong road where you're like, oh my God, man, like he could have been so better. And I
Yes.
feel like that all the time, like, where I have certain opportunities, and I always want to bring everybody. Me and my friends, we have this thing we always say to each other, especially when we're outgrowing people or we're upset that, you know, people are leaving our lives, is everybody can't fit on the yacht. You know, we say that to each other, and you know, because we always say everybody can't fit on the yacht, and I think that I always got to remind myself of that, because again, I've accomplished so much. I used to downplay my experiences sometimes, like, oh, it's not, it's just a little this, that, it's not that serious. Or I will always try to make it smaller than what it was to make other people feel comfortable. Or even like where I think that they said sometimes you got to go around successful people, because unsuccessful people make you feel like sharing your experiences are bragging. And when I read that one time, I was like, wow, that's what it is. It's just you're around the wrong people. And so I do have that, you know, guilt sometimes where I feel like I don't relate to somebody, or I'm having a conversation and I'm like, why are people even focusing on this? Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I have my days. Like, I'm reading the shade room sometimes and I'm laughing at the shade room. You know, I'm listening to the songs they might list as ratchet. You know, I always tell people like Young Jeezy, his one of his albums that came out, I think it was in 2015, it was a push to me, you know, just even hearing him talk about living nice and a lake behind his house. I'm like, oh, this is everything. I'm listening and listening. No doubt, yeah. So I'm like, I still do the normal things that maybe someone my age or things are younger. I'm still very hip to what's going on in TikTok. I'm on Snapchat. I'm doing all of that stuff, but it's still okay to want more for myself. And it took me a while to really understand that. But I think, again, like, I just go back into, you know, resetting my mind, and also just realizing that we're here for a greater purpose. You know, if you ever heard someone tell you, you know, maybe a grandma or a mom or anyone say to you, you were loved before you had a name, I always try to take that with me. Yeah, you were loved. You know, God created you, and you know He had a vision for you before you had a name for yourself. So that's how I get out of it. Like, you know what? Like, I'm not here for them. Like, I'm here for myself. And whoever I'm going to connect with, I'm going to connect with. Whoever I don't connect with, and maybe they might have a misunderstanding of who I am, then that's fine too. But I can go to bed at night knowing that all I wanted to do was help people. And I did, like I told you, going back to my mom, I tried. That's all I know is I tried. I could rest with that. So that's how I get out of it. But sometimes I do, especially, you know, going back to the opioid crisis. And we have friends now, and even you probably have former students. And I even had, when I was at the Harris brunch, there was someone that I went to high school with. Mm-hmm. That came out, and she spoke about her addiction with heroin. And I was like, you had an addiction? I never saw that for you. You know, I went up to her after, like, I felt so bad. Like, wow, I wish I would have known. Like, I said so many things to her, like, I should have reached out to you. Like, I didn't even know this. Like, you know, because we make fun of people. You know, people post stuff and people are like, oh, this person is annoying, or this person is always sharing their business. But who reaches out to individuals and really say, like, what's going on with you?
And really, yeah, but being real about it. And I think, you know, I think that in that opioid, that's real. You know, the addiction period, the addiction world period, you know, is real. And definitely shout out to Miss Nieves, who I think of as a sister, for the work, you know, the work that she did. And she was a big part of, you know, because it took a team with y'all back then. You know? Yeah. it wasn't me by myself.
Yeah. But it makes you feel bad. It makes you feel bad. Yes. That's what I'm saying, because you're like, even then, like, how did I get out of it? Like,
to make it.
To make it. Like, you know, I was suspended too. I would get in trouble. I wasn't doing anything involved in drugs or anything, but I also might have got in trouble a lot more than some people, or I was counted out more. I was counted out. I don't think a lot of people saw what was coming for me. But at the same time, it was just kind of like, dang, like, how did I was able to get this opportunity and this other person didn't? I do have those moments, like, you know, I just feel bad. I always, you know, sometimes I'm just overly, you know, sympathizing with people. But now I realize that you don't have to necessarily get involved with every sad story. I always say a prayer can go a long way too. So even if I don't reach out to a person, or I may see someone struggling with something, that doesn't mean that behind the scenes I'm not thinking of them or trying to figure out a way how to, help on a greater cause to might help more people that might have a similar situation to them. But that's what I do. Now I don't really try to get just like tangled in everybody's problems, because I used to do that for a very long time. And then I just step back now, like, and I embrace all the good that's in my life, because there is a lot of good, but sometimes you miss it because you have that syndrome, like you're saying, like you're like, how do I got this, or how do I show these people that I'm just like them? Like again, and I said,
Yes.
making myself small so they can feel better. So I just started snapping out of that.
That is, young folks is listening, even grown folks, if you're listening, I think that that's a very important lesson, is not to make yourself small so that others may feel big and so that you can, fit in. I think it's a lot to be said for pulling people forward. And that's the whole theme, believe it or not, of this whole show, Purpose and Practice. The emblem that you see, the logo that you see, that's a Sankofa. That basically means that bird is reaching back and grabbing an egg, which is equivalent to knowledge or equivalent to our people, and bringing them forward. So as long as in your day to day you are doing that, you are doing what matters, and
Yeah.
that's something that we always have to remember. So TyKiera, your family,
Yes.
your family to the show now. Your
Thank you
family.
so much.
Yes, you are definitely
I
family
had a
to
good
Purpose
time.
and
Like I said, I
Practice.
love the vibe, and you're doing
Yes,
such a good job with all
listen.
this.
This is new to me, but I like, there's stories out there that we all need to hear, and your story is one of those stories. And I'm
Thank
happy
you.
that, you took the time today. You had a lot of support in the chat, a lot of people bigging you up, which is definitely deserved. Keep
Oh yeah,
doing
I
it.
have a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
love around me.
yes. You're blessed. You're very blessed. Keep doing what you're doing, TyKiera. And I'm you had posted on I think it was Instagram or Twitter not too long ago, about learning from me, and I think I put it back to you. I have learned more than you would ever imagine from you, and it's something, the stories that I know from you, I share with young people that I work with today. So
Thank you so much.
those same stories are still impacting other people. So when you think you're not reaching people, the more work you do like this, trust me, there are people out here who are sharing the stories of the work that you're doing, and it's impacting people that you don't even know. You understand what I'm saying? So make sure you realize that, and don't ever stop believing that.
Thank you.
Yes. So shout
I
out.
appreciate it.
Yes. Shout out to
And thank you
you.
to everybody that tuned in, and
Definitely.
watched, and thank you for having me on here. You are definitely the gem. I always got to get it back to you, but I always say, if I go into any rooms, and the high school staff and tell you, I always make sure I bring you up. Like, no, Mr. Rawls this, Mr. Rawls that.
I
And
appreciate
I
that.
feel like our peers that were watching, like they all feel the same way, and I always say, like, this is like everyone feels the same way about a person. Like the students, forget the staff, the students love you. And I know you're in another, you probably don't see it as well too, but even when I say Mr. I remember I tweeted actually before I even like started following you and stuff on Twitter a while back. I had to pull it up and send it to you. I said, Mr. Rawls needs his flowers. And I always say different things. And like I got so many retweets and replies. Um, I even have a friend, Mariah Hall, who
Oh
one
yeah,
time I tweeted
yeah.
about you. This was before your book
Mariah's
club or anything started. And she was telling me, this was actually back in December. Actually, I remember because it was around Christmas time. And she was like, Mr. Rawls was showing me how to write a book about my life and all this different stuff. So I just want to let you know the same thing about you as well.
listen, listen. Thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
you know that's real love. The only way when I deal with any young person, I deal with them the same way I would want an adult to deal with my kids. And that has always been the way I approach everything. So, when I was seeing y'all, I was seeing my babies even before I had babies.
Yeah,
You know, I didn't even have babies then, but I was like,
we might have made you a
yes,
little
yeah.
scared too.
Listen,
Like
yeah, y'all did. Y'all did. I
we
see,
probably when you
yeah.
were like, hold on.
Listen, I see Kayla in the chat. Like y'all did, but you know what, man? Like I would do anything for any of you. You know, and y'all all know that. And the love was real for y'all all to succeed and to do what y'all needed to do in this world. And y'all are doing it. You know,
Thank
and
you.
I'm happy to have been a part of it.
Thank you.
I really am. So on that note, you know, thank everyone who watched tonight. You know,
Yes.
we send you peace, we send you blessings, and we hope to see you next time. Please get subscribed to the YouTube channel.
Yes.
Follow the show. We're gonna have more guests like TyKiera who are doing extraordinary things. But TyKiera, one love. We appreciate
Thank you.
We really miss you. One of your teachers just shouted you out, Miss Miss. Oh, that's Miss Miss
Davi.
Davi.
I
Yes, Miss
love her.
Davi. Yes. Yeah, so thank you, TyKiera, for your time, and peace out, and we'll see everybody next week at
All
4
right.
o'clock.
Have a good day too.
Yes, you too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.